Hello there and welcome back to the JOANN Stitch-Along for 2023. I'm your knitting instructor, Marley Bird, and we are about to finish up this beautiful Ruana pattern. By this point, you should have the entire body of the Ruana finished, and it's time to add that little bit of edging to really finish it off. This is a very simple task, and it's one that can be like, oh, do I really need it? But I am going to encourage you, do this little last step. It's just going to finish it and make it a beautiful piece. By this point, you should have your instructions. I've put a link in the video description box below, so that way you can easily find them. Why don't you grab those instructions, join me down here as we take a look at my little gauge swatch, and I'm going to talk you through how to do that edging. Well, this little swatch should look familiar. I've been using it all along. I just went ahead and bound off all of my stitches in garter stitch, just like you did on your Ruana. The only difference here is obviously I have a back here, but I don't have two fronts. But that's all right. I can demonstrate what you're going to do with just this little piece. All right, so before I jump to this, I am going to go back to the schematic we finished with in week 3 because it has everything on there that I need. Even though I know there is a new schematic for week 4, I just want to kind of refer back to this so that we know what's happening, okay? So I'm going to use my big pink marker to show you what we're going to add an edging to. We are going to add an edging to this side of our Ruana, this side of our Ruana, and the inside right here, okay? We are not adding any extra to these points because all of those have garter stitch already completed on them, so we don't have to do anything there. But we have something over here, and inside of here. The pattern wants you to begin with the neckline over here. The pattern wants you to begin with the neckline edging, which would be right here. So what we will do is with our color A, or whatever color you want, you are going to pick up and knit stitches all along one side of the front edge, okay? How many stitches? 115. Then we're going to put those 15 stitches that we had on holder. We are going to knit those. So we're going to knit those 15. And then we're going to pick up and knit 115 along this edge. Okay? We want to make sure we have these picked up and knit as evenly as possible. It's really not that hard. I'll show you a little trick to do that. And then these 15 back here, once you knit across those, you'll have all of those stitches on your needle. So 115, 115. I'm going to show my age here by doing it just like this. Actually, it's a 3. 2, 3. I could do this, I promise. Plus 15. So we have 5 for 245 stitches total, okay? So you'll have 245 stitches total. Once you do that, you simply knit 2 rows and then bind off. Bob's your uncle. That's all you got to do. After you do that, you're going to go to either one of these edges. It's totally up to you, and you're going to pick up and knit 236 stitches. Knit 2 rows and then bind off. Then you'll do the same over here. Once you've done that, your Ruana is complete, if you've tucked in all your ends, right? So that's all we have to do, right? It's pretty easy once we think of like, oh, we're just picking up some stitches, knitting a couple rows, and then binding off. Picking up some stitches, knitting a couple rows, binding off. It's really not that hard. However, do you know how to pick up stitches? Do you know how to pick up and knit stitches? I find it to be a really easy thing to do. I think the hardest part is picking them up as evenly as possible. So my little trick is to add stitch markers. Divide what you're going to be picking up into sections and add stitch markers. We know that we have 115 stitches we are going to pick up on 1/2 of our front, right? Well, I know that I could divide that by 5 and get 23 stitches, right? Which is really convenient because I have the same number of stitches in each section. What's difficult about that is dividing my side up into an odd number of sections. I find it easier to divide it up into an even number of sections. So we have a choice. We could divide 115 by 6, and we would get 19 stitches and change, which would actually be 114, right? 6 times 19 is 114. So we would need 1 extra stitch in one of the sections. I kind of like that one. Or we could do 115 divided by 4, and that would give us 28 stitches and change, because 4 times 28 is 112. So we would need to add 3 more stitches. So we would add an extra stitch in, 3 of those 4 sections. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have 1 section, 2 section, 3 section, 4 section. So in here we could do +1, +1, +1, and then make that one even. Where over here we have 1 section, 2 section, 3 section, 4 section, 5 section, 6 section. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, where we would do even, 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 +1. All right, you guys, can you see that? So you kind of have to decide how you want to divide yours up. If you find it easy to get an odd number of dividing up your spaces, you can use that. I think for me, I would do the 4. I would divide mine up into 4, and I would do, so this would end up being, I'd pick up 29 stitches in that section, I'd pick up 29 stitches in that, 29 in that, and then 28 in that one. Like that's what I would do. But you decide what works best for you. Let me show you how I divide up my sections. And for that, I use stitch markers because they're super convenient and they really help. And I always have them on hand. Okay, the first thing I do, let's pretend this is the front of the piece that I want to pick up stitches on. I will fold it in half and find the center point. Okay, so now I have 2 sections. If I divide those 2 sections into sections, I will get my 4. So at that, I would divide it, and that's when I take my next markers, and I divide 1 section, sort of like this, and I would put my marker there. And they don't have to be absolutely perfect, guys. And then there's my marker there. And boom, now I have 1, 2, 3, 4 sections. I could do 29, 29, 29, 28. And then I'd have my 15 stitches at my neckline, and then do the same thing on the other side. Okay, let's pretend we're gonna pick up our stitches now. So I am gonna hold this here with the right side of my fabric facing me. Grab your needles and the color yarn you want to do your edging with. It should be the same, it should be your color A. And we're gonna pick up and knit stitches. Start down here at the very bottom. You're literally just gonna put your needle right into your work, yarn over your needle, and pull up a loop. Guys, it's that easy. Put your needle in, yarn over, pull up a loop. Put your needle in, yarn over, pull up a loop. And count your stitches. All right, count them to this marker, get your 28 stitches, just evenly space them out the best you can. You can go under 2 loops, you can go under 1 loop, you can do whatever you want, like right here at the edge. Just try and be consistent with whatever you choose. Personally, I like to kind of split right down the V of the stitch because I like the way that looks when everything is said and done. But I'm just picking up stitches, so it just kind of looks like that. So the edge looks even. Let's say I had the correct number of stitches there that I wanted. Here's the little tip that I use. Right now, I remove this marker and I place it on my needle. The reason I do that is because now I know at that point, I have the correct number of stitches. So as I continue on from that point, picking up stitches, if for some reason I have to rip back because maybe I don't have enough stitches or I have too many stitches before my next marker, I know that I don't want to rip back beyond that marker because that's correct. Like that section would be correct. And so I just would need to rip back to where that marker is, whatever, okay? So let's pretend there was a marker here and I had enough stitches. I would take my marker off, I would put it on my needle, and I would carry on. Does that make sense? Okay. Once you pick up all of those stitches, you will knit 2 rows and then bind off. At that point, the front neckline of your project is done and you only have 2 more edges to finish. So you'll pick up 236 stitches on one of the edges in the same manner, divide it up and pick up your stitches, knit 2 rows and then bind off. And then you only have 1 more edge to do. Pick up all your stitches, knit 2 rows, bind off. Weave in all of your ends and your Ruana is complete. All right, so I know you guys are loving this Ruana pattern. I can see it in the Facebook group. It's very exciting to me. I've also gotten tagged a couple times on Instagram for people showing like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I've done this. Some of you are like, this is the most knitting I've ever done on one project, and I get you, but it's absolutely worth it. It has been such a joy teaching you how to make this Ruana. I hope you had just as much fun as I did, and you will come back here for more stitch-alongs that Yarnspirations and JOANN collaborate on. I love being your instructor, and I hope you've enjoyed being my student. I'm Marley Bird. I will talk to you again very soon. Bye.